Hello, everyone. I am here with Adam Bonilla from TeamElitePhysique.com, and we got some judges' feedback last weekend from the Arnold Classic Bikini International, and I think we should share because everyone wants to know the feedback. Everyone's curious. I got a lot of people in my DMs. What did the judges say? What did they think?
Yeah, and I think it's important for everyone after a show, especially a big show, where you're fully peaked, to ask the judges what the feedback is, what you need to work on, and then go into a game plan for the remainder of the year, especially this earlier in the season. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to analyze, we're going to talk about what the judges said. We're going to kind of go into what we think is going to happen with the year. That obviously can change based on how she's responding. Mm-hmm. But this is kind of our initial game plan for 2023.
Yeah, bring it on.
Yeah,
let's
I'm
get
excited.
this season
I'm
started.
Super excited for this year. Yeah. Towards the end of the year, I'm like, oh, I'm tired.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah. But hey, the Olympia this year is in November 11th, I believe, in Orlando, Florida. So, hey, that's kind of cool, right?
Yeah. We get another little. By the time the Olympia comes around, we're both going to be tired.
Yeah.
And then by the time March rolls around again, we're both going to be like, man, it's been like 6 years since we competed.
Yeah, bring it on. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. So Adam here has footage of the Arnold Classic. This is going to be my routine first and foremost.
Yeah, so one thing that a lot of people noticed about your routine, what the judges were saying about your routine, is no one said anything about improving your posing. Even talking to Sandy last weekend, she said your posing was great. There's nothing really need to work on the overall posing, which years prior was some feedback,
Definitely. That's something I struggled with for a while. And I think a lot of people too think that just because it's not as elaborate or long as the other competitors, that it's a disadvantage. And it's been kind of clear from what I understand going to several seminars in this past year is the judges aren't looking for the longest, most elaborate routine. They actually said the longer you're on stage, the more chance we get to pick away at your flaws, So for me, I'm more of a get to the point kind of poser. I'm, not here just to do the same pose 5 times. Yeah. So I just kind of hit it and make sure that I get all my good angles, get in my good poses. And, that's the most important rather than adding in all this extra flair and time on stage.
Yeah. And I would say that seems to be trending now too. I think people have really taken on to that. You've been doing it for a long time where your routines were been in that 45-second range, know? And I think that you're seeing a lot of these 1 minute and 20-second posing routines, and they're now getting to 50 seconds and things like that too. So it seems to be trending. The word has definitely gotten out on that. And so good job at seeing that foresight on that.
Yeah, I did feel like an outsider for a while because I am the only competitor that seems like I don't walk to the back. So for a while it was like, what is, this is different, but the judges actually appreciate the shorter, more to the point routines. And they always say show us a sample so we can bring you back on finals and we want to see more. We don't want to get bored with your routine. Those poor judges sitting there on the panel, they don't want to see the same pose 5 times. They make that pretty clear.
Yeah. It's only 56 people at the Olympia.
Only
56 people at 2 minute posing routines. No big deal. No, as it was said, how you said it earlier, and Sandy said this at one of her seminars too, is, when you first come out, I'm like, wow, she looks great. And then the longer she's up there, the more I'm getting used to it. And the more I'm looking for flaws and the more I'm seeing them. And, you're starting to kind of expose yourself versus that initial wow factor. So right. I think that's something that everyone needs to take into insight too, especially even if you're an amateur, your routines, keep them short, let the judges see what they need to see. It's a simple front and back pose, make it pretty in between and then get out of there,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So routine wise, I'm really happy with that. There's honestly nothing in the routine that I think you need to improve on. I think it's really great. I think your posing angles are really good. We can go into some of the comparisons too and look at your posing angles and whatnot too.
Absolutely. All right, so now we're going to look at my posing in the comparisons. Now, we're going to show you 2 different photos, one where I'm on the far left and one I'm on the far right. This photo right here is the group comparison. So what group comparisons are is before they give you your call outs and even before you do your routines, they kind of just line you up numerically and then take a look at you front, back, and then, okay, see you later. And then we go into the individuals and call outs. So I think it's kind of cool to see both angles because sometimes we don't get to see both angles because maybe somebody has a really good angle looking from the right, but not from the left. So I think this tells a really good story.
Yeah, and I think that it's really good showing both sides how you're doing it, because you do a lot of posing classes, which I think is really helpful for you. Pretty much a couple times a month, you're doing your teaching classes too, and you're teaching girls on the left angle, you angle your body a little more this way, on the right angle, you angle your body more this way, and you're doing a great job in both of them. But the key things to look at for you here is, and this is one of the things that I'm looking at too, is, are your shoulders showing square in the front? Are you showing a little bit of shape to your lat here?
Yeah.
Are you showing that glute profile, which is a strong point of yours versus pretty much everyone else? You have a really, really good glute profile.
Yeah.
But are you showing enough of it where your hamstring is still round and showing the roundness, which you are? And there's a little bit of shape to this leg here. There's a little bit of shape of that quad, right, where you can see just a little bit of detail. I don't want to see a leg where there's no detail at all. Like it's a big area. You know, it's like almost a third of your body when people just have no detail there. So I like a little kiss of detail there. And you have everything going. The abs are there, but they're not too much. The conditioning is right where it needs to be. And when you
I gotta say, we slayed the midsection this time around for sure. I have a tendency, sometimes I can get actually too abolitious.
Yeah.
And in bikini, they don't want to be, you shouldn't really have 3D abs. You should kind of like compared, I guess the way to explain it is, if you were to touch them, it would be like smooth, but not like bumpy, like So to have like toned, but not 3D abs would be the ideal abs. And waistline's looking good too.
Yeah, no speed bump abs.
Speed bump abs. That's a good way to.
Got it from here.
Yeah.
Speed bump abs.
So they still want to see that you have abs, but not to the point where they're projecting out.
Yeah.
You know, because then we're kind of getting into more of like a figure look.
Yeah, so all in all, really good fullness. And when you look at in the line on everyone, size-wise is very, very comparable between all of you. You know, you're looking here, there's very comparable size. Structure-wise, you're obviously petite in your structure, but size-wise, muscle covering the bones type of thing is very similar to everyone here too. So I think the fullness on this, I mean, obviously the Arnold, everyone's super full and super muscular. I think that you did a really good job with that. And you could see some improvements in your shoulders, which is probably the biggest thing. Shoulders, the biggest thing I think from this Arnold to last Arnold was your shoulder improvement and your your upper glute medius, the outer edge of the glute was too.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like, to see it, you're not going to see improvements every single show if you like look at it at like a month to month kind of situation. But if you take a look back and expand out the picture and look from year to year, you can definitely see those changes. And sometimes even within like even 6 months, but it's not something that it's like, oh, every time you're going to get this huge change in physique, unless it's something more conditioning related. But if we're talking about putting on actual muscle, it's more challenging to do that whenever you see it more of like a month-to-month basis. And the analogy I like to give too is like, when you grow your hair, right, you're not going to see difference from day to day. You're not even going to see difference week to week. You're probably not going to see difference month to month. But if you expand out and see year to year, you can see, oh yeah, my hair did grow, didn't it? And for me, I compete frequently throughout the year. So it's not like you're going to see these huge changes every time I step on stage. It's impossible. And I think more so if we take a look and just expand out and look from year to year, you can definitely see those changes. So although I do compete a lot, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not making improvements. It's more, since you see me so often, it's going to be more gradual in comparison to maybe a girl that competes twice a year, at opposite ends of the year. So it's like, it's something to consider, because I feel like that is like an ongoing thing. Like, you can't make improvements, or you know what I mean? So
yeah, and even the girls that take a really long off season and come back the year later, it's usually when you see those big improvements, it is the conditioning thing. It's like last year, someone at the Olympia came in a little bit soft, and this year they came in hard, and they're like, she's so much better. I'm like, muscle wise, she's very close. Like, it's very, very close, but the conditioning wise is totally different, Right. So that's you had examples of that at the Arnold too. Someone was flatter at the Olympia, came in full and did really well. Yeah. So and everyone's like, oh, huge improvements of muscle. And like, the muscle was always there. It wasn't full the last time.
That's something to be said too. Different ways to peak can also affect how muscular you look, but in reality, you might not actually be more muscular. It's just you're more filled with carbs or less filled with carbs, And, no peak week is ever the same, because no scenario is ever the same. So at some point, it's like there is that little variable of how well did you peak for the show. Yeah. And I would say, for the show, I will be honest, I think I looked a little better previously before. I still think to date my best showing was the Arnold Classic UK.
UK, you killed it,
I was very full and very lean. followed by my second best showing ever was probably Olympia 2022. So that was quite recently. But yeah, I mean, I think from this show, I might have been just a little flatter. Maybe I went a little too low in calories the last few weeks. Who knows?
It was a weird prep.
It was a weird prep.
That we had the initial illness after the Olympia, Olympia flu. Everyone got that.
The Olympia Cron variant is what we're naming it.
Everyone got that. What did that knock you out for, like 7 days, 10 days?
Yeah, it did knock me out for 7 days, but I somehow managed to lose quite a bit of weight.
So weird.
During that time, although I was eating more and not even working out. And I, looking back on it, I think it probably set me back farther than what I thought.
I think it set you back. Honestly, looking at it from again, probably took 4 weeks out of our prep of getting the muscle back. Because it doesn't make sense that you weighed less, but were softer at the end of the flu.
Yeah. And I was so
3 pounds
bony.
less than the Olympia and softer, right?
Yeah. I got to 117 after the flu.
Yeah.
After it. So, oh gosh. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I was feeling better within a week, but maybe my body wasn't ready.
Yeah, there was some recovery there. There was some recovery that initial flat. I was thinking that we would be able to recover all the way and get you back to Olympia shape after that. But I think we still need a couple weeks, just because you went right into dieting after 5 weeks of trying to get it back type of thing.
Well, our dieting actually was more high calorie than usual, just trying to get it back in. But as far as prep, yes, I started training hard and all that. So
there's something to be said about that. Who knows? Who knows how much of the effect?
Maybe it's just bodies are weird sometimes.
Yeah, it could just been body this time. Who knows? But yeah, I think there's some variable there too. But at least you got it back now, and you're looking full now that you've had some rest since the Arnold, which I'm really happy with how you're looking now. She did her check-in yesterday, and I was like, okay, we're back again. You're feeling good again. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, we're good. We're past it.
And and wouldn't you know it, the week after the show, I didn't lose a whole bunch of weight because I wasn't sick.
That was crazy. So let's go ahead and look at the first call out pictures too.
So this is the group posing, or the group comparisons. Now let's take a look at the actual first call out, which was a 4-person call out. And keep in mind, there was 9 girls at the show. So that's the upper half. And, the goal is always to get first call out. So when I do, I get super excited. So it's so nerve-wracking sitting on that line and being like, oh, I hope they call me for first call out. I hope. So, after prejudging, it was really hard to see where we all fell, right? Because they were moving us around. I don't think I spent the most time in the middle or anything. But something that happened this time around that I was not prepared for is apparently it's a thing now in bikini. Some of these girls were definitely riding up on that line, above the line. And I, at some points I tried to scoot up a little more, but I couldn't really play catch up. And I don't think this photo really shows it that much, but there were times where it was pretty significant. Yeah. And that's something I need to be aware of now, because I didn't really think of it in the past. I'm always on the line for sure, but I didn't know girls would go so far forward, which definitely does not work in my favor because, like you mentioned, I am very petite. So even though I have muscle, having the muscle on a small frame is going to make me smaller already, but to be behind everyone made me really, really small, which I don't think I'm as small as I appeared to be in some of the.
When you look at this picture, which is the initial movement, everyone's still on the line. Yeah. You're very aligned with everyone in terms of muscularity, Yes, more petite, but very aligned muscle. You don't look so small. But the problem with the line too is when and this is a bodybuilder thing, when you step in front of the line, you look bigger, right? So if you're already the smallest one, then you get pushed back 2 feet, then you really look small. Yeah. And then the other problem is the judge, if I'm here and Ashley's 2 feet in front of me here, the judges over there can't really get a good look at you. So that's the real problem where that comes in. But yeah, it's just some some
curve.
New stage awareness of
we're
something
learning
else.
things every time. But so it's just one thing that I got to watch out for, and just be aware of, because I don't have any size to afford when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, with this call out and I think, I think all these girls look amazing, honestly, though, for real. And just to be up there with them is an honor. So I'm happy to be, in the mix. Yeah. In the mix with everyone.
So yeah, it's I mean, this is basically Olympia Light, you know?
Yeah, Olympia Light. I like that.
Yeah, it's you know, this is going to be the usual suspects probably in the first call out at the Olympia. Hopefully, you know, I like all these girls. So, yeah, no, you look great. I love, and if you look at the profiles of all the girls too, like the glute profiles, you know, you have one of the better glute profiles here.
So go into glute profile, because I think a lot of people, when they think of glutes, they think of just from the back, right? Yeah. But glutes are also important from the front.
Yeah. So and the judges do look at that.
Yeah. So it's that profile glute. I don't know if you want to zoom in or not.
Actually, I'll do it here. All right. So the glute profile, what we're talking about in terms of glute profile is the actual roundness of the glute from the front. So Laura Lee, really, really good glute profile. Probably the strongest glute profile here in terms of size would be Laura Lee. Then it would be you in that glute profile. And then Jennifer, then Maureen in that glute profile. So, you know, you want to look at the physique, not just from the back in the glutes, but you want to look at it from the front in the glutes too, because that's going to help your ratio. That upside down triangle, your glutes, and you want to get a good balance of shoulders, then waist, then glutes, shoulders, then waist, then glutes. And you want to have that hourglass look. And, you know, you can see it on, well, Ashley and Laura Lee have probably the best ratio of that glute shoulder to glute ratio, you know, glute waist shoulder ratio. So I really think you do a great job with that. To be honest, I don't know if you could really even improve on that part of the front glute profile, because it is, and I think if you do any more, it might get overpowering. Mm-hmm. I mean, probably the only tiny area might be maybe a tiny bit more here, but you just look great in that front pose. Yeah.
You. And I think too, with the glute profile, it does help to have good hamstrings as well, because it creates that divot in between the shelf and your hamstring. So having well-developed hamstrings, like bubbly hamstrings, definitely create that illusion that you have more of a shelf, you know?
And in terms of the roundness of hamstrings, you actually win that in terms of in the front pose, the roundness of the hamstring. So that's another thing you want to look at, and Laura Lee comes second here, with the actual roundness of the hamstring. You'll see some girls, they're not showing it, they'd be like more straight along, and it's just that either they don't have as much development or they're showing more quad front. They might have it, they're just showing more quad front, but I like the roundness to everything. You see this bubbly hamstring, the bubbly glute, the small waistline, the wide shoulders, the V taper on the lats. So that's what we're looking for with the, you know, high level posing. So yeah, I love that roundness that you show here. And also we talked about the kiss of detail here, where you're just giving a little nudge of shape here to the quad. Mm-hmm. So
cool. Awesome. So let's go ahead and get into what everyone's waiting for, the judges' feedback.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 the suspense. So we did talk to head judge, and she told me something that I'm hearing and I'm improving definitely for sure, but it is an ongoing thing, just more fullness up top. Yep. Okay. So it's easier said than done, though. It's something I've been working on for a long time, but I can assure you it is getting better. It has gotten better. If you've seen my photos from like 2019 or 2020, I was just a noodle arm, and now I got a little cap. A little cap going on. So it's a work in progress. I mean, it's definitely a stubborn area for me. I'm not where I need to be yet, but it's getting closer. So
yeah, you're making improvements, and when we talk about, so there's this term I use, which is workout age, and workout age is how many years you've been working out. So the first year, if you're a very young worker, you could be 70 years old, but if you're young in your workout age, let's say you just started working out at 70, your first year of working out, you're going to make huge improvements. That's that first year, those newbie gains, right? So you're young in the workout age, years 1 through 3 of working out, make the most progress. Year 1, the most. After that, you're kind of fighting for a pound here and there a year, especially someone who's petite like you is going to be, maybe if we're having a great year would be like 2 pounds of lean mass. That'd be be awesome.
One on each shoulder.
Yeah. So, and that's with everyone thinks a lot of times that, the competing is hindering you. Yeah, probably a little bit. Instead of her gaining 2 pounds, maybe it's 1.25, something like that. But it's not dramatic. It's not like you're not going to make progress at all, that type of thing. So, and even that's questionable. That might not even be happening. So,
right. There's a lot that goes into that. Like in a perfect world, you'd be like, yeah, I'll take off 4 months and my shoulders will magically grow. It doesn't happen just like that.
Yeah.
It is and just rest assured when I am, I compete a lot, but we are very smart about it.
Yeah.
We're very strategic. And I think a lot of people get the idea that because I'm like competing so much that I'm prepping so hard every single time. They probably picture in their mind that I'm on such low calories and that I'm doing hours of cardio. That is not the case. For me, my body can maintain pretty well. Okay. For me, I can maintain pretty well and I have good energy. I'm happy. I get good lifts for the most part. Now that doesn't apply to every single prep. Of course, there will be preps that are tough. This last one was tough.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I just cruise on in. Honestly, I kind of just live the life. And I think a lot of people get that like idea in their mind that because I'm competing so much that I'm just running myself into the ground. And going back to what I said, we're very smart about things and very strategic. You'll notice that I do a lot of shows in clusters and take little mini breaks throughout. But I always listen to my body too. So if I'm feeling too worn down, if my mind isn't there, if my physique isn't responding, of course, we're not going to continue to push if it's not happening. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I've been an athlete my entire life, like since high school, and I did track in college. So I'll be honest, training for college track was way harder than this. I'm sorry to break it to you. It was way harder. Okay. So I'm made to kind of tough it out.
Yeah.
But for me, it's not miserable. I'm not feeling crappy for the most part, except for few occasions. We can't all be perfect. But I think like for me, I just like live the life, and it's, you know, my body is responsive when it comes to just maintaining, you know, and the shoulders are, you know, genetically not in my favor, and me being a track athlete, lower body's always going to kind of be in my favor anyway. Yeah. Years of running track and doing 400-meter hurdles. So, you know, it's something that we're working on, but keep in mind too, no one is complete. No one on stage is complete. Not even the Olympia winner is complete. I'm sure she's working on things too that the judges tell her. So there's always something we can all work on. And for me, it's my upper body, you know, and it's just something that I have to dedicate more time to. And it's getting closer to where it needs to be. It's not there yet, but it's getting closer.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, you could see progressions on it. And that's the thing. I liked how you talk about, you know, listening to your body. And I think that that is super, super important. Your body is basically the compass for your journey. And so it's very visual, and it's very visual and mental too. You know, if you don't have it in you and you're like, I'm just going through the paces here, I'm not really into this prep, you know, you pull back from the show, you know, just say, you know, maybe I won't do that show and we'll just take a little mini break, you know.
Absolutely.
If you're getting to the point where you've dieted too long and you're getting a little flat, and we're just like, you know, you're getting a little, we'll talk about like, your arms look a little small, whatever. You're like, all right, I'll take, you know, 4 weeks and pump them back up type of thing. So yeah, I think that's really important that people listen to their body and listen to where you're at in your prep.
Right.
And, you know, let your body be your compass. Like truly just look at it objectively and be like, okay, what is my body telling me to do? That's what I'll do. You know?
Yeah, and there has been scenarios even like last year too, where I wanted to compete the following week too, but we could see in my body like, okay, you're getting a little too flat, a little too stringy, and then we pull back. We don't continue to push through if the physique isn't looking good. And we would never like put me in a scenario too where I keep getting worse and worse and worse. Like, of course, not every show I'm going to make huge improvements. Sometimes I won't look as good as a previous show because no one can be that consistent for sure.
Not at that volume. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Not with the amount of shows I do. So whenever we do see like there's a downward trend, like, okay, maybe you don't look as good as the last show, and then another show we do, okay, and you don't look as good as the show before, and then we see it's in a downward trend, then we'll kind of like pull me back and take a little time off, because I have taken time off before. I've taken time off last year, and keep in mind too, I've been competing for a long time, so there's been actual years that I've taken off before. Yeah. I've taken off a whole year before. I've taken off 6 months before, 8 months. And there is one thing I would like to say is like, you know, for me, I'm very goal driven as far as like a date. So if I do have a date, like, okay, I'm competing in 6 weeks. Oh, I'm going to push it so hard. Whereas maybe I wouldn't have that kind of intensity or motivation if it's like, oh yeah, I'm competing in 8 months, you know? So that's something to keep in mind as well.
I think that's consistent with a lot of people, you know? Yeah.
Totally.
But going into your overall, you know, improvements and physique and the time in between too, I think that it's important people to see, you know, we have a game plan for X amount of shows, and then we're going to take X amount of time off. Yes. And, you know, it is based on how you're looking, but we have a good idea that we're going to be somewhere taking in that 2.5 month off range or so throughout this year, after a show. And then also, you know, we're going to probably load up and take some time off and get a real good workouts real hard before the Olympia and take some time there. Yes. So there's that too to, you know, discuss. But yeah, I'm really happy with how your overall, improvements have been, especially from last Arnold to this Arnold?
Oh yeah,
Real
definitely. Yeah, definitely. And something I would like to point out as well is a lot of people think like, well, Ashley, you're maybe you come in like fuller or softer, and it's like, well, listen. The judges have actually told me, no, your conditioning's perfect. So I think there's like a lot of chatter, like she comes in too lean. Like that's how they like me. And that's how I think I look best too. And this goes into genetics as well. Like some people pop more if they're a little fuller and a little softer, which keep in mind when you do play the fullness game, you're likely to be a little softer as well. Likely, So playing the fullness game, I don't think I should get any softer than I am. This is how they like me. This is how I think I look best. I pop the most. Whereas some people can get away with being a little softer and it works for them. And that's the thing about bikini. You'll see different shapes and builds and amounts of body fat and muscle, and we keep saying I am a more competitor, and that doesn't mean, by the way, that I'm short. I'm 5'5", but as far as actual structure, bone width, I'm more petite, which funny enough was actually, it used to be an advantage. Like back in the day, you'd see like Courtney Keene, Nicole Negrani, very small structures, right? And I was one of those too. I fit into that very small structure mold, the petite girls, and now it does appear that they are more bigger physiques,
medium build physiques. Yeah.
Yes. The builds of the physiques. And I'm not talking about height. Again, we're talking about shoulder width, hip width, bone thickness. That seems to be more of the ones that are doing well. And I'm just, I work with what I got. So, maybe petite structures will come back in style. We'll see. But in the meantime, I just gotta,
Yeah. And the thing is,
to build
with the petite structure you have and the way they like you on top of it, because they do like you leaner. People are like, why don't you just fill her out harder? I'm like, well, there's a certain point where she's just softer and smaller than everyone.
Yeah. And we've definitely tried that before. And I can assure you, I don't look as good. Yeah. We've definitely tried to come in full. And I was full, but it didn't look as good.
It doesn't as pop. Yeah, because
I lose the conditioning.
Yeah, you lose the conditioning, and then the thing is now you're smaller and just as soft. Right?
Yes.
So there's no
There's no competing what
level.
sets me apart. Yeah.
So there is a perfect capture point of that, and yes, we're gonna play with it this year a little bit, and come in a little fuller at some shows, and hopefully not overshoot at any. But it's probably unlikely if we try too hard. So we're gonna always err on the side of being a little bit leaner because that's how she'll win. So, yes. But yeah, there's gonna be we're going to try some things a little bit this year, push it a little bit in some areas. And if we have the room in certain preps, but just so people know, that's why, you have to be able to focus on your attributes, how the judges like you. A great example of that, you had people at the Olympia, like coming in way leaner and then they come in softer and then they do really well at the Arnold, that type of thing. So everyone has a certain look that they like. Now, the problem is with you, when they do like you a little leaner, and you're more petite and someone else's can be a medium build and allowed to be softer, yes, they're going to be able to get you on size on two ways. Their structure and on having that thin layer of body fat is more size. There's no denying it. It's more size. It's bigger, so totally. So it makes you look a little smaller. So there's a disadvantage there that people don't recognize as well.
Oh yeah.
It's a double. It's a double.
Yeah, I mean,
but
totally.
You're doing really great with it. You're really great with it.
Yeah.
So.
And with my conditioning as well, although I am probably on the upper half of the conditioning, by no means am I ever the most conditioned at the shows. Like there are some girls that are coming in these days with like striated glutes and stuff. I see them pumping up backstage and their glutes are literally striated. And I'm like, I could never do that. Yeah. So, I mean, although I am one of the leaner ones, I'm by no means the leanest. So I'm kind of like riding the line of like, okay, too lean, not lean enough,
Yeah.
So it's never really going to be that condition to where I'm over the top. In fact, I have not gotten told since probably the end of 2020, was it? No, 2021. I'm not sure. It was years since they told me I was too lean. Yeah. So the only feedback I've gotten with conditioning is perfect. Keep it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And even when you were too lean that one time, they were like, just a little too lean. They were like, just a little too lean. And it's like, and that's the line you got to cross. You got to walk that line, of there. But yeah. And even at the Arnold, in terms of conditioning, you were probably right, like dead smack in the middle.
Yeah,
of the
that's
whole
where you want to
lineup.
be.
Yeah, dead smack in the middle.
Yeah, I would probably say in the first
call
call
out,
out,
you're the
probably
leanest,
the leanest, most conditioned. But as the Arnold as a whole, yeah, I was probably in the middle, which is perfect. That's you never want to be the leanest, you never want to be the softest, unless you can really pull it off.
Yeah.
But no, I was happy with my conditioning. I think we nailed it. I think like there's a lot of times people think like they have the easiest solutions to everything and like, oh, just come in softer, oh, just come in leaner, as if we haven't tried it, or as if it's just going to magically only go to my arms, right? But, you know, when I come in softer, I'll lose my tie-ins, lose my waistline, and I think that is definitely an advantage for me, especially in the waistline.
Yeah. So, with that, I think we got everything covered for the most part, right? With the judges' feedback, and then it's just looking at, you know, when we're going to be jumping on stage. And I think with the way you didn't rebound like crazy after the Arnold. Yeah. And I think that we're going to be on target for doing a show here pretty soon, and we'll see how it goes, you know?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, and just to let you guys know, I did a little mini deload week last week after the Arnold. I didn't take a full week off because I knew I might compete again soon. So I just kind of did like a 50% intensity kind of week. And I worked out, I think, four times last week, 50% intensity. And that's just to kind of establish my routine again, just to get back into the gym and start to do things and feel more normal, right? Because after being on the East Coast for 10 days, it feels strange when you first come back and you're like, I feel all discombobulated. So just getting back into my routine. And this was the first week I was back on the 100% intensity. So still with very minimal cardio. Yeah. Cardio though, like two 25-minute cardio sessions this week is what we're doing. So
and then we'll cruise back in next week and then just see where you're at and physically, mentally, and if you're ready to go. Yeah,
totally.
So I guess that's it, guys. But thank you a lot for watching. Really excited to always hear back from you guys too. It's nice to get feedback from you guys too, because you guys are always kind of in on the journey. We'll call you guys the third judge, the unofficial judge. Oh. They send us in the comments and things, and it's always nice to get your guys' support. And so we appreciate it. And I guess anything else there, Ash?
Well, we'll see how the year goes. I do want to compete a lot, but again, we got to listen to the body. So stay tuned. We'll keep you guys posted, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.